everyone here has their own story, why you decided to join this sector. How can you develop responses to change such that, you become an even better version of yourself and the organization through such major changes?
But the business of the day is that you use paper and pen. And what happened to that paper and pen? It will go into some file. And what happened to the file? It will go below the desk. And it will stay there until you collect some probably 2-inch thick of dust.
But being a charitable organization, we just wanted to use resources that we had without spending too much.
We see that it's very important to have a volunteer management system in-house. How do I choose one that is suitable for me? My agency don't even have a tech person.
It's much better. So for example, we make everything that's complicated easy to do. So something like creating a form, we make it like a drag and drop version. So we really focus on making it easy. And we really put our utmost best in creating, the best versions of things that can be used by the social sector. So hello and welcome everyone to today's session about deploying SafeEntry and other safe distancing measures at your nonprofit. A recorded version of this webinar will be made available after this call, so not to worry if you disconnected somehow by accident. We also have ample time for Q&A at the very end of the session, so if you have any questions that come to mind to ask any of our speakers, feel free to leave them in the chat. You can find the chat button below the participants button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So we'll definitely love to hear from you and answer any of the questions that you have. We intend for this session to be somewhat intimate where you get to ask the questions that you have. It's a rather small group, not too large. So I think we can try to leverage on this smaller group to share more as well as to listen to any of the questions that you might have. So we've got an exciting lineup of content in the next hour or so. We've got an exciting lineup of content in the next hour or so. So here are some of the core topics for today. First up, I'll be sharing about this community series objectives as well as more of what Bantu does. Next, we'll have Kavi from Hindu Endowments Board, who'll be sharing more in depth about his experiences as the primary person who set up the SafeEntry system across the temples that HEB administers. And right after that, we'll be engaging in a very interesting dialogue session featuring Kavi as well as Dr. Andrew Lim from NCSS. And we're very honored to have these two very experienced social sector professionals here with us today to share their knowledge and experiences. If you would like to get in touch with any of our speakers after this session, their email addresses will be available at the end of the presentation so that you can feel free to contact them. So before I go ahead to kickstart the conversations with our two speakers today, let me first introduce myself so you'll get to know a little bit more about your moderator for today. For anyone who might just be tuning in, I'm Janelle, a social entrepreneur and co-founder at Bantu. Well, for me, I'm very passionate about social innovation, especially with using technology as kind of a leveler to improve and solve pressing issues that we see in the society that we live in. After having the privilege to take part in social entrepreneurship programs in Thailand, Brunei, and the United States, I feel responsible to bring back the passion and innovations that I've witnessed during these programs and experiences. So for me, I decided to leave my e-commerce job at Amazon in 2017 to start the social enterprise Bantu because I realized how much I could be doing with my strong interest in technology, education, and skills to help serve the underserved parts of society. So right now it's specifically with helping nonprofits to engage with their communities better. So after being on the ground for the past 2.5 years, I've really seen the firsthand the burnout of managers and staff at organizations that really want to do that, create the impact in society. And together with my team, we are very determined to solve these everyday problems that organizations like yourself face through technology, as well as building the knowledge capacity within this industry, which is kind of why we are doing this webinar. So as the Chief Product Officer at Bantu, I work with my team to create tech solutions that improve the work and productivity of staff like yourself. So that's really what I do. So for those who are unfamiliar, so Bantu actually means help in Malay and Indonesian. And we actually founded the social enterprise in 2017. And what we really want to do is to empower nonprofits in the Southeast Asia with easy to use technology as well as through capacity building. And we envision a world where helping others is easy, because it sometimes is quite hard. So in the quote that's nicely put together by my CEO, Nicholas, we really envision to increase the capacity of organizations in Singapore and across Asia so that they can help more people. And since 2018, we've been working with more than 70 organizations with better management and engaging of the communities that they work with through technology innovation. And what we've managed to do is to help these organizations to centrally manage their projects and community members in one place where they can do things like take attendance, send SMSs, do reporting, and overall understand their communities much better. So for example, we make everything that's complicated easy to do. So something like creating a form, we make it like a drag and drop version. So we really focus on making it easy. And we also believe that many of the repetitive tasks that we do every day, whether you're a non-profit or even at a for-profit company, should be automated. And lastly, we always make it easy to do all the important tasks. So in this case, being able to send out SMSs to many people at once directly that you want to reach out in your community to ask them to volunteer or bring something for the next event. And we really put our utmost best in creating, the best versions of things that can be used by the social sector, and we believe that it should not be lagging behind in comparison to other organizations. Non-profits should also be at the forefront of using easy to use and good technology. So we also have a community portal where we bring together like the projects that you create, where you can directly recruit people as well as manage them directly. So we believe in bringing these two together so that you'll be able to organize your projects, manage your people, all within the same space. So introducing a little bit about impact through resilience, which is actually the theme for our community series this year. I wanted to discuss a little bit, bring some ideas for everyone to think about. The reason why we chose resilience is because I think during this time of uncertainty and in the COVID situation, all of us have been affected in one way or the other, some more than others. And we, even as a social enterprise at Bantu, we really believe in the concept of resilience, and which is the capacity of a system to respond to changes during risky and uncertain times. And something that we hold very closely is, as a team, how can we understand the change that is happening, remain adaptable, and more than just understanding the change, is like how can you persist, how can you continue and bounce back, even after such extreme events or sudden shocks, which in this case refers to the COVID situation, as well as how can you develop responses to change, such that you become an even better version of yourself and the organization through such major changes. And impact. So in the COVID-19 situation, at Bantu, we really think that impact is about how can we make use of this time to do stuff together so that we build a whole set of capacities at a community scale. And these core capacities that we refer to, it's like how can we create more capacity to self-organize and build social capital in different ways. So the things that we do and that you guys are doing in your organizations will probably have changed in one way or the other. And these are the changes that we want to acknowledge, as well as find out, from everyone else, are these things happening to everyone else as well? And how can you mitigate this together? And more than just about your own organization, but as an integrated ecosystem of impact organizations, how can we bounce back from the COVID-19 crisis together? And that is what we are really interested to explore, and we hope that this conversation would spark more conversation about working together as an integrated ecosystem. So when we start looking beyond these individual capacities, right, we think about resilience as something that is more vested in the industry, more than just a characteristic of an individual like myself. Like I say, oh, I'm really resilient. And if I say that, it's not just about me, but how can the whole community be resilient? Where all these issues, like whose resilience, whose voice, who defines the resilience, and who defines the visions for the future becomes very important. And we describe this as collective and community resilience. So this is something that we hope we'll be able to, try to build together with the rest of everyone here. So I will do an introduction of the various speakers that we have today. So we have before I do that, right, some housekeeping notes. So please remain muted throughout the session. And you can continue to leave your questions and thoughts in the chat. So not just questions, but if it's things that you think is worthy to be shared with like everyone, feel free to share in the chat. I think everyone will be more than happy to hear any of your thoughts. So today with us, we have Kavi from Hindu Endowments Board, and we have Dr. Andrew Lim from the National Council of Social Service with us here today. Let me just briefly introduce Kavi. So Kavi is actually quite a close partner with Bantu. So he's actually one of the users at Bantu, using Bantu Workspace, which is the product that we have. And he joined HEB in 2017. He founded like a media company. Prior to this, he has been doing a lot of freelance work for over the past 8 years. So his interest is really in media, infocom media, mass communications, and really helping to spread the cause of different things that he's working in. He will share a bit with you later, why is he called to join this webinar, even though it seems like maybe it's not so related with like IT. So he'll share a bit more with you later. And he currently manages media platforms at HEB. He produces a lot of digital content, photography, videography, and he has been planning and producing the live streams of many of HEB's major festivals, probably pre-COVID, I suppose. Yeah. And also we have Dr. Andrew Lim. He's the director of the Volunteer Resource Optimization team at NCSS. He has been with NCSS since 2017. And one thing I find very interesting is that he actually was involved in like the so-called like startup scene before he joined NCSS. That's something that I think is really cool. And he currently manages the development and enhancement of the volunteer management capabilities of the social service agencies, where they produce a lot of good content to help organizations like yourself do better at the things that you're doing. And he's also very involved in the SG Cares movement in terms of service delivery. So that's the two really interesting speakers that we have for today, and I hope that you'll be able to nitpick on their brains a little bit in experiences that they've had in their various organizations. So without further ado, let us have Kavi share with us about his experiences with SafeEntry and other setting up other safe distancing measures.
Hi everyone. So I think Janelle has already given an introduction about who I am and where I'm from. Maybe I'll share my screen to just tell you all what HEB actually does. Just give me a minute. Okay, so can all of y'all see my screen? Yeah, okay. Okay, so HEB is basically a statutory body that comes under the purview of Ministry of Culture, Community and Youth. So our primary role is we actually administer 4 Hindu temples. There are Sri Mariamman Temple, which is located at Southbridge Road, Sri Srinivasa Perumal Temple, which is located at Serangoon Road, Sri Sivan Temple, which is located at Geylang, and Sri Vairavimada Kaliamman Temple, which is located at Toa Payoh. Out of these 4 temples, 2 of the temples are actually national monuments. So we have about over 1,000 volunteers who actually help us during major festivals. So our key business is to actually administer the temples, the day-to-day activities, and we organize 2 major festivals yearly, which is the Thaipusam Festival and the Firewalking Festival. So my role basically in Hindu Endowments Board is to actually create online contents for our devotees, okay? And now with COVID-19 situation, we actually had to increase our contents for devotees because most of them couldn't actually come to the temple during the circuit breaker period. And now with phase 1 and phase 2, the devotees are allowed to come to the temple, but limited numbers, okay? So, and I also do a lot of live streams of major festivals. So like when a temple consecrates, we are we are actually broadcasting it throughout the world. And our last live stream for Perumal Temple, we had like about 100,000 views. So although I'm in the media line, I get to use technology quite a bit, being learning how to use different internet protocols to ensure the live stream is done. So I feel that media and the technology, infocom technology, is works hand in hand. So coming back to how actually I got involved with SafeEntry. So as you all know that in order for religious organizations to reopen during phase 1 and phase 2, they had to ensure that some safe management plans had to be put in place. And in order to do that, they had to nominate safe management officers. So a few colleagues and I were actually nominated to actually run this whole thing. So how it works is that each of our temples actually have a management committee members. So they are all volunteers. So Hindu Endowments Board, we have a secretariat staff, and over and above that, the temples are also, the day-to-day activities are run by the management committee members of the temple, who are all volunteers. So what we did was, from the secretariat, there were two staff who were actually in charge for the who took on the roles as safe management officers. And in the temples, we had a temple administrator and the secretary of the temple, who were actually safe management officers. But there were a lot of things that we had to assist. And in order for us to open up the temples during phase 1 and phase 2, we had to ensure that contact tracing was taken care. So prior to circuit breaker, with the enhanced measures that were taken, okay, what we did was we actually used normal forms, okay, where devotees who enter the temple would actually fill up their name, their contact number, and the date of visit. Okay, so it was very manual, and we had to actually keep those papers for a period of 28 days. So I think what the government did, or the task force did, was to actually come out. They worked hand in hand with a few agencies, and they came out with this application called SafeEntry, which actually assisted us to a large extent. The software was easy to use, okay, and the whole process of being onboarding process only took us about 5 minutes per temple, okay. So just to let you all know, so SafeEntry is basically a digital check-in system. I think most of y'all would have seen it in NTUCs, malls, so on and so forth. So temples also had to administer that. And what we really like about the software is they actually catered to different groups of people. That means those who are tech savvy, those who are old, and also those who are old, tech savvy, and that's about it. So there's three main ways of actually using SafeEntry from a user's point. One is, if you have a SingPass app, you can actually just scan the QR code, or you can choose the list of nearby locations and you can check in. Two is, you can actually use your NRIC to scan in. But to scan with your NRIC, it really depends on individual organizations, whether they actually have gone through the onboarding process. And third is, you would have seen a lot of SafeEntry QR code in different places. So it's just using your mobile phone, scan it, and checking in. So as I mentioned, because the 4 Hindu temples come under the purview of Hindu Endowments Board, so we just had to set up using one CopPass account. And after the successful application of SafeEntry, right, the QR posters are actually generated in 4 different languages. So we don't have to worry about even marketing, doing the collaterals for marketing. So we just had to download, print it, and display it. And that is also one of the requirement as the safe measurement plans that we have to put in place, because we have to actually inform devotees by displaying signages, what is it that they can do, how do they enter the temple, and we also train all our staff as well on how they can guide users who actually encounter any issues. And as I mentioned just now, so QR posters is one, but because the temples, right, we have got various groups of devotees who come, and most of them are actually seniors. So they're not quite tech savvy, okay? They might not have a mobile phone, or even if they have a mobile phone, to scan a QR code, they might not have the right app as well. Because to be very honest, we realized that with iPhone, it was so much easier. But with an Android phone, right, a lot of them had issues downloading the right QR scanners. But once again, I think GovTech has done an awesome job by actually telling you what are the required applications that you can use to scan the QR code. So that's one thing good. So we also, what we did was, this whole process of onboarding for SafeEntry is actually free, okay? And even for using SafeEntry with NRIC, right? We actually just use mobile phones. I think if any one of y'all would have gone to NTUC, you would have seen staff standing there with a PDA kind of scanner and then just what you call scanning your NRIC. So we also explored that option, but being a charitable organization, we just wanted to use resources that we had without spending too much. Okay. So as I mentioned, we actually deployed all these posters that were generated from GovTech. So for our premises, we actually downloaded both Tamil and English posters. So we placed it at focal points. And what we actually had to do was, the temple is huge. Usually there is, by default, devotees would actually enter the main entrance of the temple, and they would also exit through the main entrance. But because of COVID-19, and to restrict numbers, and to also ensure that devotees actually do the safe entry, do a temperature check, clean their hands, we actually created a pathway. So you can see that we actually put up barricades, we put up signages to tell people which way to enter, which way to exit. In that sense, we are actually being responsible in ensuring that every devotee who comes into the temple do a check-in. Without a check-in, they will not be allowed. And we also display signages before a devotee enters so that they can read, and they can't tell us that, oh, I don't know, I have to do it. I mean, it's technically now it's a way of life. Safe entry is a way of life already for us. Okay. So you can see this is at Sri Mariamman Temple, one of the oldest Hindu temple in Singapore. So we place signages. You can see a staff here, he's waiting. So when a devotee comes in, right, we always have this issue is that they scan, they check in, and they just walk past. But we do not know whether a devotee has actually really checked in. We have realized that some of them, they scan, but they don't check in. They just leave their particulars there hanging. So we actually put up signages here that they would actually need to show the staff on duty that they have physically checked in. Only then we allow. And they also have to pass through this thermal scanner. Only then we consider them safer to actually enter the temple. So this is another temple at Toa Payoh. So we do the same thing. All the entrance, we have actually created a way where they can enter. There's one way of entering and one way of exiting. So it's a bit organized. There might be some inconvenience for the devotees because it's a new norm for them. Yeah. So this is just a devotee. This is at Sri Sivan Temple, which is located at Geylang. So a devotee using their phone. So what we have actually realized is that most youngsters, right, and some seniors as well, are able to actually scan the, using their mobile phone, they scan the QR code and they just check in. It's a handful of people who actually do do the NRIC check-in. So this is a classic example of our setup. So what we did was We also had a barcode scanner. We used resources that we have. So it was just a laptop, a URL link, which was provided by GovTech. And then we used a mobile phone. The good thing about using mobile phone, initially when they started, you had to actually enter via a browser. And then I think last month, they actually created an app, a SafeEntry app. So with the SafeEntry app, it was actually quite easy. A lot of issues like, sometimes we had issues scanning the barcode of the NRIC or work permit, but with the app, all these issues were kind of mitigated. So what we did was we explored the option of purchasing the PDA NRIC scanners, barcode scanners, but it was too expensive. Okay, we are a charitable organization, as I mentioned. So what we did was we used mobile phones. We had, and each of the mobile phones that were deployed to the temples had SIM cards in it. So data was actually low data. And we actually modified, so we bought like rigs and selfie sticks so that devotees can actually just come and place the NRIC at a, you can see that we have placed a placeholder there, okay? So devotees will just come, place the IC there, scan, and then done. Once it's checked in, the staff will say, please take your NRIC and go. The reason why we did that was also we do not want to touch touch the ICs, because it's also a safety precaution that we are taking for our staff as well as the devotees. And you will realize that in our setup, right, there's always a hand sanitizer. So the moment due to unforeseen circumstances, if we have to touch the ID cards, right, we would actually sanitize our hands immediately. Okay, so having said that, although it was easy to create or do the onboarding process for SafeEntry, because I was doing it, and to be very honest, I didn't follow the instructions at first. I didn't even realize there was an instruction. So I just went on, created the access for all the 4 temples, actually 4 temples and a hall that we have. And then after that, we actually have another 20 Hindu temples, which are privately administered. So what we did was we actually shared resources with them, and we told them actually how they can go about to set up. So we came up with a simple guide, okay, of like within a 1-2 page. So how they can actually do the onboarding process for the QR code posters plus the NRIC. And we also organized the training sessions for our staff, because the staff that were deployed, they were temple administrators from India. There were also musicians who were assisting us to ensure that the devotees who enter would actually do the check-in. So it was very easy for them. We explained to them we actually came out with very simple instructional guides. From a devotee's perspective, if a devotee has an issue, how do they go about? So we did, and we also did one for public, because at that point of time when the SyncPass mobile app was being used for SafeEntry check-in, not many people actually were aware. So my boss actually told me and said, hey, Kavi, can we do something to inform public? So we did very simple screenshots. I mean, I used my own mobile phone, did the screenshots, came out with simple instructions, and we shared it. So even if our staff or even the volunteers who assisted with doing SafeEntry, they just look at this, and these are key questions that they would need to ask themselves and guide the devotees who have an issue. So far, it's been about, since June 2nd till now, it's about a month. Everything is going well, not much of an issue. Like I said, it has become a new norm. So devotees have been used to it right now. We see initially for the phase 1, we actually saw a lot of people scanning their NRIC, but now we see a lot of them flashing the SafeEntry pass. So I think message has gone out and people have actually understood. So I mentioned to you just now that the onboarding process, and we have 20 Hindu temples which are privately administered. But so we shared resources. So this is one of the resource that I mentioned. So I actually simplified the whole version based on GovTech. So probably only 9 points that they need to know in order to do the whole onboarding process. So you can see, I mean, I'm not IT trained, okay? I'm media trained, but I think technology, or what GovTech has done, is that they have made technology available to anyone, and it's so easy to understand, which I think is fantastic. And the whole process, I think, just like what Bantu has for their volunteer management system, which is easy to use, not much of a thinking. The same concept can be seen in SafeEntry. So, so that's the whole thing about this onboarding process. It's just a matter of just adding your address, the name of the organization, your UEN serial number, and that's it. Pump. 5 minutes, and you're ready to go. It's just that sometimes the website itself, when you go in, you see so many buttons there. So I think what you just have to see, if any one of y'all who are in the process of getting your organization ready, right, just look out for the SafeEntry icon. When you click that, just follow the instructions and you're ready to go. So like I mentioned, what we did was barcode scanners, which was pretty cheap, $100 off the shelf we could get it, and then it's just a plug and play, and we use mobile phones. So of course there were a lot of questions asked whether we should hold the phone, scan the NRIC and all that. But to be very honest, the phone, because it uses your phone camera, so it always does autofocus. Okay, and each time we realize that when you have to angle it in a certain way to ensure that it actually scans the barcode, and that usually will take from about 5 to 10 seconds. Sometimes a devotee is holding the NRIC, and then you have to tell them, can you please tilt it up, tilt it left, tilt it right? And we realize that with safe distance in place, and also with the limited number of devotees who are allowed to come in, we realized that that's not the way to go. So these placeholders was also provided by GovTech. So it's all on their website. The resources are there. Just have to download it, print it out, cut it, and stick it. And to be honest, this actually saved us like a couple of seconds. So it's only like 2 seconds now. Anyone who wants to scan their NRIC just have to place it there, pump. 2 seconds done, and they go into the temple. So this is a typical setup for us. And you will realize that we actually have a staff that is sitting on the opposite side as well. So in the event anyone has an issue scanning their QR code or needs any guidance, they actually go and assist them. Okay, so that's all I have on SafeEntry. So yeah, Janelle, back to you.
Yeah, I mean, that was a really interesting sharing. I think it's really coming from someone who has really done the groundwork and who knows exactly what's the reality of things. I think that's the reason why when I was talking to Kavi on the phone one day just about something related to Bantu related things, and then I was like, oh, so how's things going? And then he shared like, wow, he's been really busy doing all this setup for like SafeEntry. At that point, I was like, oh, I don't know if it was difficult or not. But then as I talked to him, I realized, this would be a really great experience to share, because I think, it's like temples. You have devotees that it's like related to religious practices, and I guess you have to be even more mindful. And they are one of the first few organizations, I suppose, that have to have their services continue within this space. So it was like going in, with a blank slate. So I think then you can tell from his words that he really has done all these different things. And more than that, I think when I was listening to him, I really admire your spirit of like doing more with less, and still making it simple. Like sometimes less can be complicated, ends up being complicated, but I think I can see that it's a state where it's very well set up and everything is very seamless. I think to build onto that, I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you. So, for HEB right now, how and as well as the temples that HEB administers, how has COVID-19 created that? How has a new norm been created? And how have your devotees been affected, like positively or negatively in any ways?
I think the new norm right now is that the limited numbers. So I think we acknowledge that. Okay. So the new norm for phase 2 is at any one point of time there's only 50 devotees allowed in a temple, and everyone and if they are coming in group, no more than 5. Okay, that's the guidelines set by the by MCCY. And I think everyone, the other new norm is that everyone have to do a safe entry check-in and then a temperature check. Only then they are allowed to enter the temple. Initially, before COVID-19, it is about you enter the temple, you wash your leg, and then you go to the sanctums and you pray. But now there is a lot of I would say restrictions that is for the safety of the devotees and for the community. Yeah, and the other new norm is also we allow devotees to walk through and to do, but a lot of services right now is actually pre-booked. Yeah, so we are also moving forward, and we have actually devotees can actually pre-book online. Okay, that's another way that we are moving forward. And yeah, it's everything is going digital right now. So but also because keeping in mind that we are a religious organization, we have to strike a balance, because it's not like everything can be done online. Devotees still prefer to come and be there, be present, and to experience it. Yeah. So even our priests, because of the safe distancing measure, we do not have close contact with the devotees right now as well. So a lot of things have been put in place in the temple so that if, let's say, you want to give your offerings, you leave it at the table, the priest will take it and then you bring it in. And there's a lot of cleaning process also. So all that has been taken into consideration because of the guidelines. And in order for temples or religious organizations to function, we have a safe measurement plans that we have to put in place.
Yes.
And to adhere to. Yeah. So that's the new norm, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that has really accelerated the use of digital technology, even in an organization that you might not first think like, wow, really has to use a lot of technology. So I think it's really a really great example of how an organization has managed to, upskill and put more technology in place. And hopefully that really helps HEB to have even more, like bounce back even faster, and the processes are even better than before. I think that's the hope that we have. So we'll go through a little the rest of the questions at the end of the dialogue. But before I move on, so we would like to invite Dr. Andrew into this conversation. So during this part of the webinar, we would like to have an intimate dialogue session, about the best practices as we are planning for our communities to come back together post-COVID. So we'll be discussing how to go about designing and organizing different programs so that they're still complying to safe distancing measures, and how can you use technology in that midst as well. The key question that we'll be discussing, is how can we guide organizations to design programs that help to be safer together while still being compliant. So for some context, during this period, the safe distancing measures and that kind of apprehension towards the changes that have to be taken place has affected many organizations and caused many disruptions in programs, events, and a lot of physical types of activities. So my first question to Dr. Andrew is, so are volunteers still crucial during this time, and how can organizations still benefit from managing volunteers well?
I suppose this period of time has definitely seen a lot of new change, and at the same time has surfaced a lot of gaps. For example, organizations that are more forward-looking, more advanced in what they have been doing, they are more ready to actually latch on the new changes and move forward with things. And we have seen that with many, many organizations, but unfortunately, there are also others who are actually probably for the time being falling behind, trying to still get their footings. But volunteers remain an important source of resource to any organization. Why do I say that? Actually, at the beginning of COVID, when things were beginning to surface and things were a bit uncertain, we actually received a few calls from social service agencies who call us up to say, hey, I have this sudden withdrawal of volunteers in bulk. And we say, oh, okay. And they say, because of that, I can't do anything. And some of these services are people running the food delivery, for example, which are crucial. If food are not packed, food are not delivered, and what happened? And for this sort of organizations, they actually operate on a very lean manpower and leaving the rest to be augmented by the volunteers. So on that note, volunteers are most important. And that experience also allowed me to see firsthand the different way of engaging volunteers that will lead to different results and the different impact. For agencies that actually bring forward their volunteers and say, come, you work alongside me. We work out the plan together. You tell me what you can do. You come in and tell me what I should do and be very open about it. Those are the organizations that were actually able to build the next or relationship at the next level with these agencies. And they actually benefited a lot. So we know of some that are in Bedok area, for example, Phylos. They were able to quite quickly say, okay, I need to do befriending. The Akong Ama is waiting at home. We have no idea whether are they taking their medication, whether are they properly seen to for their needs. But to send volunteers there is almost impossible. It's a bit like what Kavi mentioned for the temple. Allowing people to go in initially is almost like a no-no, but then they slowly found a way and slowly people are slowly coming back on. Controlled numbers, but people are coming back on. And that is exactly what is happening with some of the social service agencies. They find a common ground that volunteers can come in and augment what they do in a virtual way. And that is where we start to see virtual volunteering taking off in this period of time. I used to hold this belief that in order to extend a help to someone, you need to extend your hand. And using that warm pair of hands, you actually move the person and get close to the person. But unfortunately, situation is as it is. Things have to be done. The Akong Ama cannot be left alone. And what do? And that is where the phone call, the virtual volunteering come into play. But it also then at the same time show us one other issue, which is where agencies that are more technologically advanced and savvy, they were actually able to move on quite quickly to the next step. Or they actually open up and say, I need help. And I have this very good, I have been engaging my volunteers in a very open manner. And the volunteers actually brought in a lot of resources for them. There are even agencies that have donations of phones that they can subsequently give it to the elderly that they service. They are actually receive laptops that they can subsequently give it to the children from the rental flat so that they can conduct remote tutoring. All these things will not be possible if we rely on the agency on their own. And that would almost be a mission impossible for most people. So volunteer in this time is not only important, in fact, volunteer during crisis has shown us that it's even more important than peacetime.
So I think something interesting you mentioned is, a question I would like to add on is, so, these great examples that you've given, which shows a lot of hope, to the rest of the organizations who are listening. What were the things that you think prepared them, to be effective or even more effective during this crisis period? Like, what were the key factors that made them be ready for a crisis to happen? Yeah.
Okay, for a crisis to be ready, number one, your ongoing relationship with the volunteers is important. But what is even more important is, as an organization, how ready are you to actually engage the volunteers? For example, if your senior management are not even of the opinion that volunteers are important, volunteers are of good use to us, And in some cases, I've even heard them saying that volunteer is a liability to us. If the management and the structure is not supporting that, that by itself is already an inherent issue. Number two, the readiness of the organization in time of crisis. Are they prepared with a pre-plan, a during plan, and more importantly, for recovery purposes? Are they ready with a post-plan for them to come back on to their footing? How ready are they in all these aspects? Have they been thinking about the involvement of volunteers? We know, as a matter of fact today, going into senior activity centers is restricted. Volunteers going in would be worse. But then there are other things that can be done. So have they considered from the very fundamental of program design? During peacetime, what can I do? But during crisis time, how should I switch? The fundamental of program design were not actually in many ways thought through by people. And that was a awakening call for NCSS, for VRO ourselves, because for many years, for the last 3-4 years, we have been doing a lot to improve the capabilities of the social service agency in volunteer management. And we have been doing it a bit like human resource practice, because volunteer management is effectively managing of sales workforce, but a non-salaried workforce.
Yes, that's right.
But then this crisis actually show us that there are many things that need to be done. Businesses, BCP, business continuity plan, but does volunteer management have their volunteer continuity plan, for example? And this crisis actually show us that there is a need to. Do they even consider the design fundamental of the volunteer role redesign? The fundamental of how do I engage a volunteer? How do I communicate a volunteer? Do I every time have to wait for a volunteer to come, then I can talk to them? Or is there a secondary platform that I should keep it warm? Not to start only when I'm in crisis, but really keep it warm even during peacetime, so that I am ready to turn it on, engine go, and I can move on.
Yeah, I think the concept of, engaging both your active as well as inactive volunteers or people in your community is a very important concept. When you are having crisis, some volunteers might not be really active in your normal day-to-day, but they should still remain engaged with your organization if they believe in the cause or the beneficiaries that you serve. I think a lot of times, even in our own experience, we do see organizations who might kind of neglect volunteers who are not so active because they are not really rendering help at that point in time. I think there's that huge opportunity there to be able to see how you can continually have them engage with your organization's missions and even the happenings, interesting things happening. Like I'm sure these people will want to know as well. I think for those who are just joining in, right? So I just want to reintroduce Dr. Andrew Lim. He's the director at the Volunteer Resource Optimization team at NCSS. So he's really the perfect person to ask any questions you have with regards to managing volunteers as a resource, whether through frameworks or technology or any sort of questions like this. I think you have a really good perspective. So do ask questions if you have any for him. I mean, you just shared about the key considerations for organizations when they plan for continuity. The key thing you mentioned is engagement and better management of them. What are some of the recommendations and perhaps like even support that NCSS can provide to guide these SSAs and nonprofits at large to overcome challenges of continuing volunteering activities or just community activities in general?
Okay, NCSS is a state board under the Ministry of Social and Family Development. For the matter, many of the agencies are actually member agencies. So we are a bit like a state board. At the same time, we are a bit like country club, whereby we have members agencies.
Yes.
And to our member agencies, what we have been doing in terms during this period of time is really to extend both the financial and non-financial help. So financial help wise, of course, there will be the charity support fund, nothing too big, but there are some money there for them to tap on to overcome this period of time, especially if my place is found to be infected. How do I clean up? Those are a lot of money, by the way. So they will need money for those. And if I need to go on telecommuting, if I need to go on digital pathway, I need those equipment, the hardware. Some monies are there. To move on to volunteer continuity, we have actually developed a volunteer VCP, we call it in short, VCP, a guidebook that is not planned to be prescriptive, but rather to be one that will make a reader think about what are the steps that I should consider, and it comes with a guide. And for someone who is interested to take the guide and say, I want to operationalize it, similar to me having a business continuity plan, I also want to incorporate a VCP that is actually there are funds available for that purpose. There are VWO Capability Development Fund, and then agencies will be able to tap on it and then find a consultant is to really work things out with them. From the very fundamental of what are the things that I can do in preparation, what are the things that I should do when I'm in the thick of things, and what I can therefore consider when I need to recover and get back on. We are talking about post-circuit phase 2. Everybody is keeping the fingers crossed for phase 3. We have no idea when it will come, but how do I prepare myself for that day to come? And on the other side, to help the agencies, Kavi, what he have done at the temple and stuff like that are really fantastic. And he continued to emphasize the beauty and the need for technology. And that is exactly where we see also as a gap within the social service sector, digitalization. And that is something that we want to go full force. But I must admit that NCSS probably we have been a bit slow to the bandwagon, but we see that there is a need to, and we are going to push forward with this thing. For me and my team, we have done two things. I suppose it's no secret to everyone that doing volunteer satisfaction survey is quite important, especially if you want to retain people. But the business of the day is that you use paper and pen. And what happened to that paper and pen? It will go into some file. And what happened to the file? It will go below the desk. And it will stay there until you collect some probably 2-inch thick of dust. And when you ask them, what have you analyzed from it? Oh, no, I don't have the bandwidth to analyze. So that is the true matter of life. And simply because agencies, many agencies out there are organized like that. So we actually came out with what we call a volunteer engagement tool, which is it's basically an e-survey form. But what is more interesting about e-survey form is that we have incorporated an engine to do the first layer of analysis of the data that you have achieved. So if you reach out to your volunteers, they come back with the survey, you have the first cut of the data, and the data are analyzed. So you just go onto a dashboard, you will be able to quite quickly see things. And if you want to compare yourself against the rest, we actually have an annual report that you can compare to. So you know exactly, okay, mine is 5 out of 10, but how good is 5 out of 10? Maybe the sector at large is only 4 out of 10. You're actually quite good for the method. Like so where do you stand? So that is one thing that we have done. Another thing that we have done is this. Within the space of volunteer management, we see that it's very important to have a volunteer management system in-house, similar to what Bantu is offering as one of the options. But it's a question to many people, how do I choose one that is suitable for me? How do I start? My agency don't even have a tech person. So we have actually developed a volunteer management system roadmap, a roadmap that will tell people whether do you really need it. And I must be fair here to say not all agencies need, because if I have only 3 AMA as my volunteer, I know them at my fingertip. I don't need a system. But if I have 300, I have 1,000, like in the case like what Kavi mentioned, how do I manage them? You need a proper system to manage them. But what are the considerations that I should put behind as I go about to explore the different vendors, the different solutions? But please do not get me wrong here that I'm asking you to develop something from scratch. Developing something from scratch will not only cost more, it will also have a lot more legacy issue, a lot more long tail issue. I can say that because I run an IT company for 18 years before joining NCSS. And those are the things that you don't want to invite into your organization. Leave it to someone, you find the right person that can have most of the checkbox tick. And then that way you are more confident jumping into what you are going for. People who are involved in the roadmap development are people with the system, without the system, very sophisticated with the system, very advanced with the system, but there are some who are just scratching their head and say, is this like Excel? So it is a whole spectrum of people. And what is also good about that roadmap is that it comes with this template a template that if you pay serious time, and I will recommend no less than 2 hours, to go through the whole process, it will actually be a map that you can say, oh, I'm actually at stage 3 of this whole process, and how do I go from stage 3 to stage 4, stage 4 to stage 5, and one step at a time. At least it's more guided, and to many of us within the social service sector, it's also a lot more assuring, because sometimes you just don't know what you're getting into, and we hope that that guidebook, the map itself, the roadmap itself, will provide you a glimpse of what is needed to move on to the next step. And that's why digitalization is a big gap. It's an area that NCSS want to invest into to see that the sector move up to the next level. And those are the things that we want to see how we can better support moving forward.
Oh, that was really, really many insights that I think a lot of people here will benefit from. I think in our own experience at Bantu, I think many organizations have this misconception, that kind of like technology is like a magic bullet. Like, you ingest this thing and it will magically solve all your problems. I think like what NCSS is developing, to really understand, to map out your own problems, organizational issues before deciding to go onto a solution is a very, very important step. In fact, that's what we also tell people that organizations will reach out to us. Like we sometimes ask like, so are you really ready to take on something like this? It's not something that you eat and then you will like magically solve your problem. So technology is no easy feat. Coming from myself, that I'm not from a tech background, but now I'm running a software company per se, with the intention to create impact. It's really, really tough for us to really try to share about what technology is about, why digitalization is important, and what you should expect and not expect from it. I think I echo many things that Andrew mentioned, and I think it gives everyone here a lot of hope that this is kind of future that we are heading towards to be on par with the rest of the organizations and companies in Singapore. There's a certain level that I think we can all reach with the right tools, technology, guidance, and advice, and consulting and everything in place. Maybe one question I have is, so how do you think an organization with have such a little resources, with all the need to do all this planning and all these things that you mentioned, who within the organization should try to take the lead to do these things? Should it be like the volunteer manager? Should it be like which persons or persons would be the most relevant to try to kickstart this change within the organization?
I suppose the politically correct answer, if I need to give, would of course be the boss. But to imagine that the boss can do everything is unfair. Mm-hmm. And for that same reason, and understanding how social service are being staffed, I would really encourage that all social service sector look towards two things. Number one, look outside your own agencies towards others within the same sector. How can we work together in a collaborative manner to partner each other to solve the issue? Even potentially sharing a IT system for that matter, or sharing knowledge of how to use the IT system. So that is one possibility. Another possibility is really to bring in people who volunteer with you and are prepared to work with you, because these are people, they have wealth of experience, and they are not going to charge you if you know how to treat them well. They are not going to charge you if you know how to involve them. Because people who want to volunteer typically come in with a heart to want to help. But most of the time, their heart turns cold because you are asked to stand next to a toilet when you are there to engage the amma, because there are just too many volunteers and they don't know how to engage you. The volunteers do not see a reason why I'm here, and that's when they start to get cold. So we think about, how do we engage a volunteer? How do we go about to recruit volunteers? Is big number really that important? And even when I have a volunteer, how about I share my volunteer with another agency, and vice versa, the volunteer from the other side will come in and they might bring in a unique set of skill sets that I actually need for that season. So it's a lot of mindset change. And so back to your questions, I don't think it's a job of a single person. Definitely you have to be initiated in-house. But when they do initiate in-house, look outwards for resource, look outward for partnership, look outward for potential solution.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that there's really a lot of things that needs to be done to engage someone meaningfully, and I think that's really the role of a human, like a staff, to be able to do. And I think most of the time, I think organizations don't really have that time or bandwidth or mind space to engage in that kind of really meaningful interaction. I think everyone comes off with a good intention, everyone, but in the end, when we are bogged down by all these not administrative things or things that were not planned properly, there's no, I guess, set process. We get distracted, not really distracted, we have to do it, yeah, we have to do those less important but urgent things, and then as a result we might neglect the more important things for the organization in the long run. Yeah, so I think I think that's a good reminder for everyone here, yeah, to think like
if I may just add one more point, allow me to sell some koyo here. It's less of a koyo, but more like my personal belief. I think there are many people out there who wants to do good. Yes. I think we have friends from Beyond, we have friends from the Ghost Guide and stuff like that. But I think what is important is for us, every one of us, to recognize our strength, what we have, and look towards collective impact. Because ultimately, it's the individual that we want to serve, it's the individual that we want to uplift. But if I do it alone, there's only this part about him that I can uplift. But collectively, we can actually move him really up and to be in a sustained manner, that he can really walk on his own, he can really get uplifted. So look beyond yourself, look beyond ourselves, and then go for collective impact. Collectively, we can do a lot more. In fact, I'll just digress a bit into SG Cares, and that's exactly what we want to do. Under SG Cares, we want to see how this society, at the individual level, we can be actually a better person, but more importantly, as a nation, as a society, our social fabric will get stronger because of the involvement of all of us. People who can give, people who can receive, people who are coming in between as a broker. How can we do our job better to make sure that the social fabric of this country just gets stronger by the day? I'm currently, full-time, I'm with NCSS, but for this period of time, I'm actually with MOH, helping out with COVID since the 15th of April. And it allows me to see a lot of things. And most of the time, it allows me to see beautiful side about human being. And there are just so many people who want to do good. But it's really how do we engage them? How do we bring them on board what we want to achieve? And I think that's more important. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think it really serves as a good thinking point for everyone. I think all of us have a very crucial role to play in this whole, improving the social fabric of our nation. I think we shouldn't undermine the kind of impact and the things that we can do for this nation since we are in this impact space. The more we should encourage conversation, even we don't know how to collaborate. I think collaboration is a very difficult thing to do when we're all in our individual spaces. But I think it can always start off with just talking to more people, me talking to another social enterprise and non-profit, and me talking to NCSS staff. So there's a lot of ideas and steps to move forward, right, when there are conversations being created. And I hope that this can, continue and for more people to share what they face, and not just like every day, just being so operationally involved. Just having a talk and chat would be quite good. I think so at this time, right, I want to move on to like the questions that people have been asking us in the chat. But before I go on to that, right, there's just one question that they are not prepared for this, but I want to ask Kavi and Andrew, what's the reason that you joined the social service? Like, what made you join this kind of difficult industry to be in?
Kavi, you can go first.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to let you know that before I actually joined in the Endowments board as a staff, I've been volunteering since 2007. So, being on the ground and seeing what we are doing for the community, okay, has inspired me. So actually as a volunteer, I've been already doing all this live stream. And I realized that using technology, although it's religious ground, I was able to reach out to more people. And I think that was what inspired me to join this as a community, to join the community
Oh,
sector,
yeah.
service sector. And even before this, I was actually working in SINDA, Singapore Indian Development Association. And that's also a non-profit self-help group that was also assisting the people in the community who are less privileged. So I think serving the community is just a call, yeah. And I enjoy doing that. You get to meet people, you get to meet people and learn a lot of things from them. And I think that's the best form of education. Yeah.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah.
I suppose it's back to me. I joining NCSS happened to be my first full-time job. I have been running my own business since the age of 19. I package it, I sell it. The last one being an IT company that we disposed of back in 2016. I wasn't working for a while, thinking that I don't have to work, but that almost killed me because I don't know what I was doing then.
Mm.
And I was drawn to the sector through a conversation with someone. And because the guy thought that I would click with the sector. And true enough, I did click with what was happening, what was talked about within the sector. But to join at the front line, to lead a particular agency, at the point in time, there was an offer for that. I thought I wasn't ready. And probably joining NCSS will give me that backing and the protection and the comfort zone. But I have no regrets because a lot of things that we do within NCSS are done on behalf, never for the sector, but on behalf of the sector. And because the sector people are doing such wonderful job, they deserve a lot of help. They deserve all the help that they can get. And that continue to motivate me. And of course, on a private basis, I volunteer. I volunteer at a grassroots level. I volunteer previously with the industry body, the SITF, which I believe now has defunct, probably because of me, but hopefully not. But there are many things that I have received from the society that reminded me that it's actually time for me to give back. And it's only the right thing to do because this is a beautiful place that we have in Singapore. I stayed away from Singapore for about close to 15 years to see many things outside. And every time I'm out there, I just get more appreciative of what we have in Singapore. And I think that's one reason why I joined the sector. So to many of the sector veterans here in this group, I really know very little about the sector. I'm prepared to learn and I'm prepared to work with you guys and see how we can bring things to the next level.
All right. Thanks for sharing. I think it was really inspiring. I think everyone here has their own story, you know, why you decided to join this sector. And I think it's something that we should keep close to our hearts, no matter what kind of hardship or troubles that we face. I hope we all remember why we are still here and why we joined. So okay, let me move on to, you know, the questions that people have been asking. The first question I would like to ask either of you is, how can we educate senior volunteers who find it a challenge to embrace digital technology, such as using a volunteer management system? Yeah, I think Andrew, if you have an answer, that'd be great.
Okay. I suppose there's no easy way of going around it, but I think we can always start from the fundamental first. Process design, what is their current process? Never go for a drastic move, especially if you're talking about senior volunteer. Let them see that it's actually a progression of what they're currently doing. So the selection and design of the system will be a key consideration if you're looking at senior volunteers using technology. Allow them to appreciate why they need to do that, and then guide them with bite-size the things that they need to learn. And I think that will be quite crucial, especially for senior volunteers. And one person that can definitely work with you on this area will be RSVP. I think they have done a wonderful job in this area to actually empower the seniors to be very capable volunteers. Many of them, I believe, are what they call their digital ambassador. And I don't think the journey starts so natural for them. But RSVP has been doing a wonderful job there to empower them, to equip them, bite-size it, I believe, and then slowly pushing them up at the front line to help even more people and get another senior to help them.
Yeah, okay. I think that's very important. It's not easy. I mean, even for us, we work with many organizations who have many senior volunteers, and we are also adapting and changing and improving the way that we share. Like, I think a good advice is like bite-sized information. I think that's something that I will take away from your answer. So I think one of the questions is also like, during the COVID-19 period, right? There are two kinds of volunteering that I observe that have changed. The first kind is a lot of people are doing more virtual volunteering. So organizations have virtual volunteering opportunities. Like, for example, they do like engagement through video conferencing, like befriending services especially. And also the second thing, they limit the number of people that can volunteer for activities so that it's still compliant. But physical interaction, right, is still a very core component of many volunteering opportunities. And some programs just cannot be adapted into the virtual space. So like, what advice or recommendations do you have, if maybe Kavi or Andrew or anyone in this session today, if you want to unmute your mic to just share, how can you adapt volunteer programs that cannot really be adapted? Like, what are you doing about it, or what can we all do about it? Yeah. If anyone wants to share anything, just feel free to unmute your mic and say hello, and then you can say something. Yeah. But if our two speakers have anything to share first, while everyone gives it some thought, I think that'll be good. Yeah.
I suppose volunteering virtually is likely to be a new norm. The proportion might get smaller over time as we move into the new norm, but it will definitely occupy a certain proportion of volunteering. And I think it's quite important that we start to consider how to do it. And if there are certain things that cannot be done virtually or cannot be done physically, maybe it's to reconsider a redesign to the whole program altogether. Go back to the fundamental of what is the program trying to achieve. What is it that is trying to achieve for the service user? NCSS, we have published this book, the whole research paper on quality of life for different group of people. And in that study, it actually show us that actually people of different profile, let's say seniors, people with different disabilities, children, etc., they actually have different things that we can move to improve their quality of life. And it need not be the same thing. So it's really understanding and rethinking back to the fundamental and then recrafting the whole virtual volunteering. And try not to carry things that you used to be doing on the physical space and say, okay lah, now I'm virtual, I go virtual. I don't think it worked that way. Because it's just so different. But human being, we are very adaptable. And I think that is something that we should all applaud and celebrate. But the whole move from physical, the previous way of volunteering to virtual, does involve rethinking about the job redesign, the role redesign, the revisiting of the fundamental of the purpose of this volunteering role or activities. And I think that would give us a lot more possibilities.
I think virtual volunteering and skilled volunteering actually has a lot of overlap. And I have many friends who ask me like, oh, I'm an accountant, how can I help? And most of the time they just don't know where, and it doesn't have to be done in person as well. And there are many opportunities to translate even needs that you've never covered with volunteers to now, engage them with our very well-educated and well-educated members of society. I think there's a lot of opportunities and skills to tap into. Even if they're in a corporate job, I think there's so many people have skills. I think virtual volunteering, if it becomes a norm, I think it can even cover many of the things that we have never really thought about, and kind of like have them do it for us and with us. yeah, anybody wants to share? I think somebody unmuted their mic just now. Yeah, anybody wants to share anything? We'll pause for 5 seconds. Okay, if not, right, let me just ask maybe the one of our final questions. Let's see. One of the question is, oh, where is it? We received this when people signed up for this webinar. So let me see. So someone asked, we are a SSA, and should we have other staff like directors, HR, Marcoms, and finance to work on split shifts, or should they be working from home on default? I think this is like manpower management at the organization, and these people do not help out in ops matters. So should this SSA be recommending their staff to work more from home, or continue to work physically in the office? I don't know who can answer this. If you can't answer this, it's fine.
Guidelines that was mentioned, I mean, I'm quoting based on what the task force announced, that if you can telecommute, you telecommute as much as you can. But if you have no choice, there are some work that you need to be in office, then I think the individual organizations, HR would then have either team A, team B, staggered working hours, how many people are allowed, and etc., etc. And I think certain organizations would still need to apply for the TLE in order for them to go back. So yeah, I think that's how it is. So it's really of course, if you're essential business, then yeah, you're exempted. But if not, it's about really telecommuting. It's again embracing technology and working from home.
Yeah, I think this can spin off into a whole different webinar by itself. But I think that's something that, like Kavi says, you really have to embrace a certain level of trust, a certain level of putting certain measures in place to ensure that your organization is still moving on healthily. But it definitely has changed, and yeah, we can't really run away from the reality where it's still safer. And actually, some people do say it's more productive. When you try to work from home, you can have a better work-life balance to a certain extent, although that's also arguable in many sense. But I think if we take it, we choose to look at it in a positive light. Just like we are doing at Bantu is the same. So we are all telecommuting. There's no working from home is on default. But we do plan different activities to come together every week to play board games, to do fitness exercises together, so that we still maintain that level of collaboration and that spirit of working together, because that can't really be replaced when you meet physically. Now phase 2 has started, so maybe we'll go out in like small teams to within our own team to go and have a meal.
5.
Yes, I mean 5 small team.
Maximum 5.
My team is very small, so smaller than small. Yeah, so like in our own small teams to go and have a meal. I think that physical nurse cannot really be replaced even with telecommuting. So I'm quite glad that phase 2 has started, but still working from home on default. Yeah. If Andrew, you have anything to add?
I fully agree, but I just wanted to highlight, okay, coincidentally, I am leading the workplace transformation work group within NCS. Because the last time we renovated the place was 17 years ago. Yeah, things have changed. We still have a very bulky workstation and stuff like that. But one thing that I learned from my colleagues within the work group is that human being, we still long to meet with people.
Yeah.
We still find additional value of socializing, even having a cup of coffee at the pantry, and we talk to each other across group, across teams. And I think the unfortunate situation right now is that we have to work from home. But as we move into the new norm, I think we would have to find an equilibrium. We have to find a balance.
I agree.
Yeah, a balance that will allow the safety, the productivity, and our social needs to be taken care of. And I think that is where the very logical things that is now given as a guideline is that based on function. If your function can be performed from home, you do it that way. But I think moving forward, we have to find a balance somewhere.
I definitely agree. I think overall, I think if we can find that balance, I think it's a plus for every aspect, as long as we can manage it well. I have hope that this is actually a good thing. Yeah. And I mean, with the that we can still go and eat and hang out and stuff, I think it's okay. But if it's like fully from home, I think it can get quite depressing. So that's something that we all have to manage, I guess. If
I can hear you're quite a foodie.
me,
You mentioned food twice.
yes, I think food really brings people together. No matter what, like, you know, problems you face at work, and different issue, like different things you face at work, like playing games or eating food together really does bring people together lah. And you have open conversations. I think yeah, but yes, I am a foodie. Yes, yeah. Okay, maybe let me see. Let me see if anyone asks any other questions. Maybe we'll just take one final question. Since it's like almost about 5:30 now. Let's see. There are some questions about Bantu Workspace, but I will just answer that separately in my own time, so that, you know, I can make use of the time with the both of you. Let's see. So one question I think is quite important is how can we collaborate with other nonprofits who are working on similar projects as us? And can NCSS facilitate this in any way? Yeah. I think, yeah, you know, I was talking about collaboration.
We can
it's
always
not the most
try.
easy thing to do. Huh? Sorry?
Yeah, we can definitely try. I think there are various different platforms available. The SG United is definitely one. MVPC is another platform. They have a what do you call it? The co-space. And then that will be another place where people can come together and co-create solutioning. But without knowing the specific, I think NCSF, we are definitely more than keen to explore and see how we can be the bridge to bring people together, different projects together to work together. But feel free to approach me. With more details about your projects, I should be able to see what I can do.
Right, I think if anyone has something you want to kickstart or have any ideas that you think could involve other people within your space, I think NCSS would be a great place to, you know, get more information and be that connector for the different organizations. I think even for myself, like if anyone wants to work with social enterprises or corporates, you know, we are always a good avenue to reach out to see how we can collaborate. I think that's also one of the things, like why we are doing this webinar, is like to really just make more connections between people. And I hope it was successful today. I think with that, we've come to the end of this wonderful webinar. It was more insightful than, you know, we planned it to be. Thanks to our really open speakers, Kavi and Andrew. Like, we thank you really for your time. I think it will spark a lot of thought in people and see how we can make this whole industry thrive and, you know, really create more impact, be productive, and do as much as we can for the nation that we live in. That's all we have for today. Let me just share my screen. Let me just share this. So on a final note, we do have an upcoming webinar on 15 July. We're trying to do this series every 2 weeks. Yeah, depending on the success, but I think today was really wonderful. So I think we'll be continuing to do this series, and the next one will be about the challenges for nonprofits in navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. We will have a few quite well-established and small nonprofits to share how they have been mitigating their different issues throughout this time, like problems and solutions, basically. And it could be something that would really help your organization to learn more from as well. Besides that, thanks everyone. Oh wait, why is it? Wait. Yeah, thanks everyone for attending our webinar today. Each one will share a feedback link, which will be a very short survey to let us know like what you felt about today, and if there's any other topics you think that we could all talk about together. I will be most happy to facilitate that, invite people that we think within our network to see like who would be most great and informative to share different things. And also we have the email addresses of the various speakers today. You can email them if you have any questions or things you want to collaborate with them about. And yeah, do share with us your feedback. That's something we would really appreciate. Yeah. So thanks everyone for your time. I think we myself and I'm not sure about the speakers, but we'll hang around for a little bit. If you have any questions, are you available?
You can hang around. I'll have to find something to hang.
Yeah, sorry.
No. Sorry for the lousy joke.
Oh my god, yeah, okay. No, it's fine. Yeah, so we'll hang around for a little bit. If anyone wants to unmute your mic or just ask a question, I will be here. But thanks everyone for attending today. We'll send you a recording of this webinar. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Everyone, thanks.
Thank you.